Welcome back to Rhyme and Reasoning, the podcast where me and my guests discuss and debate the cyclical nature of the world through a pop culture lens. I'm your host, Big Papa, also the man representing Generation X. Every week I have the pleasure of being joined by my great co-host. First, welcome back, Noe.
That's me.
Noe was gone last week, but I want to welcome back. He's the
Yeah, it's good
millennial
to be back.
days.
Been busy opening the new gym, but glad to have some time today to sit down and discuss some things.
And of course, Noe's the millennial that isn't afraid of the stereotypes given to his generation.
Embrace them, baby. Embrace.
Our other co-hosts representing Generation Z and bringing knowledge to the show that some of us older folk, I said not old, sometimes don't see right in front of us. Victor Jr.,
What's up? Glad to be here.
The man
thanks
with the plan.
again to Deanna and Oscar last week for show number 3. Now available on Spotify and YouTube, social media. Noe, we missed you last week, but I think you'll be very proud of the job they did.
Yeah, I checked it out. It was actually a pretty awesome conversation. I really liked it. My wife liked it. So
Yeah, did you guys like my 20-minute rant about QAnon?
yes. You just have so much information. It's like, yeah, I love it.
Well, talking about that is that I mean, you can see all of our shows on Spotify and YouTube. And one of the cool things about Spotify, they let you get feedback. And we're getting I'm getting a couple feedbacks here and there every week. And two common feedbacks is Noise funny,
Nice.
and
Wow.
they're loving the intellectual conversation that Vic brings to the show.
Well,
So basically, Noah, you and I are dumb, and Vic's the smart one.
I don't see any intellectual shit behind what I bring to the show, to be honest.
Well,
It's just the way you articulate, man.
yeah, they're liking that, and they're liking Noah's weirdness. So
you could run a cult or something like.
Don't let ATF hear you, man.
Well, again, thanks to everybody who has heard our shows. We do appreciate it. We do this for ourselves, for fun, and also to get a little bit off our chest. But knowing that some people are listening is a great feeling.
Hell yeah.
Today's show, we're going to focus on martial arts and a little more specifically, Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu brought to us and changed in how it's viewed and grown in popularity over the years. All three of us have practiced martial arts, and all three of us have different origin stories as well as how they turned out. So again, welcome to Rhyme and Reasoning, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Nice.
Now, as we look into some of the other martial arts, and of course, being the popular one is karate.
Yeah.
As I was reading up, karate was brought to us into the United States right after World War II. Okay. And of course, it grown popularity over the years, but that's when it was first brought over. And I mean, obviously, there's history out there that shows that karate was brought probably before then in some little town somewhere in Kentucky or something. But that's what I found, and I kind of don't see anything before that. Did you guys? Do you guys have anything on karate as it was first brought over? Because I know karate was kind of like the popular one.
Go ahead. From this Google search, it seems that it was started in Southeast Asia and was introduced to Okinawa in around like the 15th or like 16th century.
Okay, and then it was brought over to, because I mean, obviously, in Asia, some of their practices are very, very close to them, and they don't like to share it with the rest of the world.
Oh, guys, I think my rant about Karate Kid from the second episode is wrong.
Why?
Karate is believed to have evolved from Ki, and its centuries-long evolution likely began when trade was established with China, meaning it probably came from China.
About the Karate Kid. Oh, the new Karate Kid. That's right.
Yeah, the new Karate Kid with Jaden Smith.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, when I was reading up on some stuff, I think that not Jiu-Jitsu, but karate was brought over after the World War II, and that's when it started getting taught here. Mm-hmm. Now, I know we have mixed feelings about karate, but before we jump into our love of Jiu-Jitsu, we got to give a little respect to some of the other martial arts.
Absolutely. Karate's cool. No, dude, like there is some like legit correct like I'll talk. I'm always biased because it's jiu-jitsu, right? But if you're good at anything, like if you've been practicing like Shoryuken karate for like fucking 10 years, you know, you're gonna be able to fuck some shit up. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like um especially in America, like people use it as a self-defense, right? Like you learn it, that's what it initially was for, right? Like you learn to defend yourself. And it's I personally feel that it's kind of naive to shit on something, especially if people have been practicing it for a long time. Now, mind you, there's bullshit like that, like chi stuff, you know, like stuff like you're about to touch me and then like you don't. Like there's chingos of McDojos, and there is watered down versions of karate, right? Like there's like McDojos, as you call them, right? That have watered down the technique and the philosophies to kind of just keep people safe and make money, right? Keep that revenue stream going. But there, I've met. I mean, man, Jeff Benugli was one of them, man. The man we train under, he was a fucking badass. You know what I mean? Like, and he was a karate black belt, and I wouldn't fuck with him. You know what I mean? Like,
I think Jeff is from that generation where like everything was just harder for them. Like, being a karate guy in the 80s was just cooler.
Yeah, man, and he was like knocking people the fuck out. So,
and I wanted to make that point because we've always stressed a part of this podcast about the generations and the years and how they've changed over the years. And then one may say, "Oh, why are you guys talking about karate and jiu-jitsu?" Well, kind of getting to that is that you're going to see as we talk here the difference in how jiu-jitsu and how karate has changed over the years. You know, we spoke. I mean, we mentioned Jeff Benugli, who was our sensei when we originally got together and started. We met each other, and the man had a huge was it a wall poster in the gym of him training at a championship fight in the ring in the 1980s, and I mean, in the 80s it was huge. And one of the person you got to thank for being karate big in that time is Bruce Lee. Absolutely. So if you mention any type of karate, you got to mention Bruce Lee. And some people may say, "Oh, he was overrated. He was Hollywood." But I mean, honestly, ever since I was a kid, I've known Bruce Lee. I've looked up stuff on Bruce Lee, especially when the internet became so accessible. You start thinking about what are those things I've always wondered. So I started using the internet, started checking. And then as Victor was growing up, you know, I introducing Bruce Lee to him. And we started watching some of the, you know, Hollywood came out with a couple movies about him. And there's so many different stories about him, but there has never been one that has not said that he's not true to what he was. Like he was a true martial artist that had great discipline and that he wanted to change the way it was viewed. And I think he was successful at it. I was just telling Victor that I read up that he actually won a cha-cha contest before he was famous to prove that he was light on his feet. I mean, he changed the way it was viewed in karate overall, and I mean, he was what considered to be the badass. You know, unfortunately, his time was cut short, and I think it was 1973. And it's unfortunate, but he gave us a couple good movies. If he didn't have his son, we probably wouldn't have got The Crow for Noe. And I mean,
the butterfly effect of Bruce Lee is pretty insane.
Yeah. It's you know, something I've always. It's funny that you brought up like the internet because like I remember the first time I got like a phone with Netflix, like the first thing I did was watch like every Bruce Lee movie. So it was like one of like the first thing my like weird brain like decided to look up on the internet. So, but yeah, man, he like even in his movies like nowadays. Well, not nowadays. I like say like anything other than Bruce Lee. Like it was always very, I don't know what's the word, like over dramatic, right? Like, of course, his movies were over the top, but a lot of the stuff he talked about in the movies and stuff was like his actual philosophy to fighting, right? Like that scene in the beginning of like Enter the Dragon where he's talking to his teacher, and he's like, "When the opponent expands, I contract. When he contracts, I expand. And when there's an opportunity, I do not hit. It hits all by itself," right? Like he's actually talking about like his philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, like he was developing that at the time, and it's super cool that he would do that, right? Because like to somebody who I mean, now we get it, right? But before then, like people were just watching it. It's like, oh, this guy's just like playing this fighter character, right? But that's really who he was. You know what I mean? Like, of course, they threw some sauce on it because of Hollywood and stuff. But you know, there's so many stories about Bruce Lee on set just being like, I mean, not hard to work with, but like intense to work around because he was always so like. It's like that boxing friend you have that's always shadow boxing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it was like the same thing, but like Bruce Lee. You know what I mean? So,
you know, one of my favorite things about Bruce Lee, well, I guess stories about Bruce Lee is that Victor showed me when we watched that movie. I can't remember the name of it.
Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, and they kind of reminded me what you're talking about right now. How he was sitting in the studio and he was talking about these different things and and how he was. But the greatest story that I remember about Bruce Lee when I was a kid was the fight with Chuck Norris. Yeah. And I can't remember the name of the movie. Is it Into the Dragon? No, it's not Into the Dragon. It's I can't remember the name of it, but supposedly that fight was real, and once again, once I got the internet, it was one of the top 10 items I had on my list. Go check if that fight was real. And it's supposedly very real towards the middle because I guess Chuck Norris was getting upset.
Yeah.
And Chuck Norris took over the martial arts world in the 80s. And once again, this goes generational speaking because I'm an ex and I start looking at all of this. And it's funny that Noe mentions that he started looking at it right away. And I don't know about like Victor because he had me to show him what it is, but Victor, I mean, does the rest of your world, I mean, still respect who Bruce Lee was and what he brought to martial arts?
I think, like most of our topics, I'm probably a niche minority, but it's only just because, not everyone is into like fighting like how I was when I was a teenager. Like we mentioned earlier, I started doing karate with Jeff when I first started, and then as Jeff slowly got into jiu-jitsu, we started doing jiu-jitsu. I know a lot. I have friends that did like taekwondo, so like the more of the Korean side of things. But that's about it. Especially where we live too. There was not that many dojos. We had to drive all the way to Los Fresnos to find like a good dojo for us to like blend in with. I'm sure there's more taekwondo in Bronzeville than there is like anything else.
And as Victor's speaking right now, we're watching the video. No, he's concentrating on a video. We're watching the video of Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris, and Chuck Norris looks like a young Jeff Benugli, doesn't he?
Yeah, he kind of does.
It's super cool that I was watching it because I noticed how they slow it down. A lot of times they had to slow down Bruce's like filming because he was like so fucking fast. It wouldn't work for like
the camera.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool to watch.
What was his punch called? The 1-inch punch or something like that?
Yeah.
Is it 4-inch or 1-inch?
It was. I think it's the 1-inch colloquially, but I'm sure it was called something else.
I've seen that video where he like has his hand like in the guy's chest and he like knocks him the fuck down.
Back into the chair.
Yeah, that's super crazy.
So Chuck Norris kind of took over in the 80s, and I remember the 80s for myself. Of course, you guys probably weren't. No, I think you were barely born, but you weren't born. In the 80s, we had a karate boom. So there was so many karate movies. Obviously, The Karate Kid being the most popular of all, but we also had Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme started coming out. We also had all these other wannabe Bruce Lee movies. Jackie Chan was still making movies. We had a lot of different. So the 80s was during that time that karate was like basically what UFC or MMA is now. Everybody wanted to go to a karate school. I remember as a kid going to karate school, and I was probably right around the Karate Kid era and going to get my little white belt, getting my yellow belt, and I was so excited. And that became a big thing, but I felt like in the 90s is when it dropped off. I think
so. From what I noticed, like, and just because like this is like a big part of my life, right? Like, I think they're still very relevant. Like as far as Bruce Lee, the Chuck Norris, like he took over like the Hollywood portion, right? Like he made it mainstream. People wanted to do it, and then like karate became like an American thing, right? Which a lot of philosophies change from the original, like, Japanese or Chinese roots and stuff. But like, I don't think there's a martial artist today that successful in martial arts that hasn't been somehow influenced by Bruce Lee, right? Even like MMA, right? Like, we're about to talk like the more mainstream martial arts. Of course, there's boxing and stuff, but we're talking about martial arts, right? Like, it's a mixed martial arts that comes from a Bruce Lee philosophy, right? Like, the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do is basically the underlying foundation to MMA. So I'm pretty sure, like, if you were to talk to these MMA guys, most of them were like influenced like by either a Bruce Lee movie somehow, or like the reason I started doing kickboxing initially, right? That was my first martial art, and Muay Thai was because Bloodsport. Right? Like, I love fucking Bloodsport. Like, I would see that movie over and over and over, and I knew what Muay Thai was. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's very much relevant. I think it's a little bit, maybe I wouldn't say under the radar, but just like, it takes a certain individual to kind of be obsessed with this stuff. But no matter what, like, if you're gonna dabble into some sort of martial art, you're gonna have to watch some fucking Bruce Lee. You know what I mean? Like, I saw Monkey Man like a few days ago.
Oh, how was that?
It's incredible, dude. Incredible movie. Fucking masterpiece of a movie.
I'm not familiar with Monkey Man.
It's Dev Patel. Remember that guy from The Green Knight?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in that one. It's his own movie. He directed it.
He did a great job, and like, you can clearly see there's like a Bruce Lee influence behind it. When I saw it, and then I was watching some interviews with him, and he's like, yeah, like, that was his, like, he wanted to be Bruce Lee, right? And he wasn't the type of actor to be cast in one of these top-notch action movies, so he was like, I'm gonna make my own fucking movie so I can like play this character that was influenced by Bruce Lee. You know what I mean? So, it's still there. I think it's just a little bit harder to see on the surface.
We're watching the video of Bloodsport with what's his name, Bolo.
Yeah.
And I seen him on the internet about 2 months ago, and it's funny to see because he's still alive, and I mean, he still looks like he kicked somebody's ass.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, he fought Bruce Lee, and then he's fighting Jean-Claude, and I mean, and we go back to martial arts, and the reason why this subject also came up is because the influence it gives in our youth. Karate, any martial art has a level of I'm thinking the word here.
Discipline, sorry.
Has a level of discipline in it. And that's a good thing you want when you have your child going to any type of martial arts, because of the discipline they bring over from China, Japan, or Brazil. They have a discipline to not only your personality, but your eating habits, your exercise. And it's one of the things that's probably caught us all three is when we started, and Noe mentioned about kickboxing, is that, it became a discipline that he had to follow a certain lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I've known Noe for about close to 10 years now, and I've seen Noe's physical appearance go from I'm not training right now to training right now. And you can see how his weight loss or his muscle growth and everything else changes when he gets really, really into his moment of training. Right now, he seems to be in really good shape. He's been training, he's been working and going. And there was a point where when you tell him Noe was depressed, and that reflects back onto your martial arts, because Noe wasn't training as much. Noe was eating McDonald's, and Noe was doing all these different things. And that goes for all of us. I'm using Noe as an example. But the discipline behind it it's not a hobby, as people should say. You join a martial arts, it becomes the lifestyle.
Yeah.
What I mean? Go ahead.
I agree. I think so. I'm gonna start now. I've talked good about karate, so now I'm gonna start right going back to my. But like, I think any martial art is a good platform for growth, right? But I think jiu-jitsu takes the cake, right? Like, first of all, it works, right? Like, but it like embeds itself like in your fucking life, right? Like, especially if you have this idea of just wanting to be good, right? Like, you get your ass beat and you're driving home with the radio off, like you don't even want to hear music. And there's so many things going through your head, and a lot of it is like, man, like I shouldn't have ate that, I should have lifted that fucking heavy weight. I should have done more reps. I would have been stronger here. So many things like fall into like this pitfall of like what went wrong. Like it's so much more than just this dude is better than me. A lot of times it's just that, right? Like this dude has trained more, he's better than me, but then like it forces you to do like a self audit, right? Like, okay, what can I do, right? I can't do anything about the guy who just beat me, but I can do something about myself, right? I can study, I can eat better, I can run more, I can, and so many people. I mean, you saw it with you, Vic. Like, you're probably the busiest out of all of us. Mm-hmm. You still find time to fucking lift and do all these things, and I truly believe that even though you lift weights and stuff now, you probably wouldn't have done that if you didn't have jiu-jitsu, right?
No, and that's a very good point. And we're going to touch on jiu-jitsu coming back from our break. And as Victor's showing us some video here of I believe it's Royler Gracie.
It's Bryce. It's Bryce and Ken Shamrock at the first UFC.
It's Royler. I thought it was Royler. Sorry. And we're going to come back after this break, and we're going to get more into the jiu-jitsu talk. We'll be right back speaking of jiu-jitsu, Ground Zero Jiu-Jitsu. Right back.
Ground Zero Jiu-Jitsu is located in Ed Couch, Texas. We invite you to check it out. They have amazing gi and no gi programs. They have the biggest square footage space in the RGV. The second floor is for MMA. Bottom floor split between kickboxing, boxing, and jiu-jitsu, plus full weight room. They are excited for the grand opening. Find them on Instagram and Facebook. Ground Zero Jiu-Jitsu.
Welcome back to Rhyme and Reasoning. Once again, we want to thank Ground Zero Jiu-Jitsu kicking off their grand opening, and hopefully if you live in the South Texas area, you can go check them out. Say hi to Noe. Woo. I'm sure he'll be happy to receive you. If you're not in the South Texas area, go check them out on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, sir.
While we left for the break, jiu-jitsu came into the topic, and jiu-jitsu has a piece of all of our hearts. Noe started a couple years before me, but jiu-jitsu is a sport, and I don't know if you want to take it from here, but it's a sport that we do it's mostly on the ground. It consists of grappling and choking and pretty much ripping arms off and legs off, and going that type of martial art. It's not so much as a stand-up kicking and punching as, let's say, karate is. If you haven't experienced jiu-jitsu, you don't know what it is, which is very doubtful, because when it hit the UFC, I believe UFC won when Royler Gracie won, and it since then has been in the mainstream nonstop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, jiu-jitsu came to America back in, I believe it was in the early 80s when Carlos Gracie moved to Florida.
Yeah.
And then he started teaching here in the United States. Obviously, it was originated in Brazil, with the real origin story from Japan, of course. But jiu-jitsu has grown in popularity over the years. The Gracie family is the most known family of the jiu-jitsu. I was reading some stuff yesterday, and there is some other people that are part of that origin story, but Gracie's obviously taken over as the poster child of it all. Grandmaster Carlos, who's deceased, and his brother Helio, also deceased, were the ones that kind of made it to the mainstream of the world, and their children have taken it on since then. Noe, I know you love jiu-jitsu. You were talking about it before the break. I don't know if you want to come in here and get some more thoughts. I was just trying to give a little bit of history on it. And there's a picture of Grandmaster Helio. But what do you think, Noe? Jiu-jitsu is like the popular thing right now, or do you think it just has overshadowed the other martial arts because it is more proven?
So yeah. So first, I'll talk just a little bit like where it comes from. Like jiu-jitsu was brought to Brazil from Japan, but its origins are judo, right? So Higoro Kano was the judo mastermind in Japan, and then Maeda was the one who brought it to Brazil, and he just happened to meet these weird Brazilian guys that needed some fucking discipline, and they made a money deal, and he started teaching the kiddos, right? So, but I think it is growing in popularity. The Dirty Dozen, right, or like the first 12 black belts, American black belts, right, came out of mostly California, and they were under Higan Machado, right? It was this was like early 90s, late 80s. By 1997, 1998, we had American black belts, right, which was unheard of, right? But I think back then, well, like there was a clash, right, between the karate and the jiu-jitsu. Still to this day, there's people who says jiu-jitsu doesn't work, right? Like I know I have a few friends who are like just sold on the idea that their weightlifting will surpass any sort of jiu-jitsu knowledge. But if you watch these crazy like gym invites and stuff from the 80s, you can see that they're very much wrong, right? Back then, jiu-jitsu is a lot more, I don't want to say it's mainstream now. It's just a lot more safer. Teaching methods and stuff have changed. Like we're a lot more focused on the retention of people. There was only a certain type of person, right, that you would allow to train jiu-jitsu back then, or that would last because it was so fucking rough, right? But now I think it is growing a lot more in popularity. But back then it was kind of like it shocked people, right? You have, like, if you watch UFC 1, and that's where a lot of these jiu-jitsu guys now and MMA guys now are doing the martial art in the first place, because they saw this little scrawny guy with a gi on fucking choke people unconscious. He would throw punches and stuff, but the punches in jiu-jitsu and kicks are for managing distance, right? To keep you away or to close distance. But you see this scrawny little individual just like tap people out left and right, and it was very shocking to the American culture because everybody was like karate, right? Punching and kicking, martial arts that are really backed by offensive moves. And you have a martial art where they hug you, right? Basically, they just hug you into submission. So it was pretty mind-boggling, and even to this day, it's super fascinating, and I think it's only gonna grow more. Like it's definitely growing in popularity. Like everybody has heard of jiu-jitsu or done some sort of jiu-jitsu. If you haven't, I think you're kind of missing out, right? So,
well, I mean, and jiu-jitsu has grown. Victor mentioned in before the first break about how we would have to travel to go to our dojo, and which is about 25 minutes away. And now, in the small city that we live in Brownsville, Texas, there's at least, I think, 5 schools right now, including the one I attend, and it's grown over the years. It's grown in the South Texas area, and it's not only here, but when I go back home to Detroit and I go to different areas, I speak to people. Oh yeah, my cousin has the jiu-jitsu, or he does jiu-jitsu, and I had the pleasure of training at Detroit Jiu-Jitsu. Me and Noe trained at I think it was 313 in Detroit as well over there, and had some great training with some guys that, we're not talking about little guys. There were some pretty big guys we were training with over in Detroit, and it has grown in popularity. And that's a good thing about it, because before, when I started in jiu-jitsu, I would tell people I was doing it. And I started about 10 years ago. It was more of, oh, really? What's that? I'm not too familiar with that. So just from the early 2000s till now, the popularity has grown so much. And look at the size of the tournaments now.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a tournament where it's just a couple people. I mean, not a couple people. It was a nice amount, but it wasn't super packed. Now they're packed. I mean, now, ADCCs are coming up soon, and ADCCs are going to be, I mean, they fill up the stadium with those, and now we have them. We have somebody. What's that?
They're like sold out events.
Yeah. And right now we currently have the person that has taken jiu-jitsu to new levels with popularity. And because he's like the first American to have this much strength over any competition, is Gordon Ryan.
Yes, sir.
The huge fan, the King Gordon Ryan. And, unfortunately, he's been sick and he's had an illness that's kind of taken his career away. but I mean, before he got sick, there was nobody that can hang with him in the match. You know, it was he lost twice to I forgot his name, Noe. He lost twice to him, but he's been trying to fight him back, and he fought him already once and embarrassed him. I mean, the guy quit.
Oh, yeah, Peña. And you got like those were losses like at a lower belt level too, you know,
at a young age.
Yeah, it wasn't even like but yeah, he's
Felipe Peña, right?
Yeah, he's a pretty unstoppable force, man. Even sick and shit, he was still showing up, fucking 240 pounds. Fucking
and people hate his arrogance. I love it. I think that he's shown time after time that why he's the king. But he's taken his popularity to a whole different level, and he's shown you can make money doing this sport. Absolutely. So jiu-jitsu has grown tremendously, and when you got somebody that's making a living off it now, not just him, you got the B team, you got so many other people, you got Felipe Peña, you have Barbosa, you have all these people who are all making money. Of course, all these names I'm freaking out to, people probably like, who the hell are these? But when you follow the jiu-jitsu community, especially on Instagram, and you see the novela, the soap operas that happen between them, and then you start recognizing some more names and start seeing more people that you start liking. Garval and Andre Garval, of course, out of California. And I forget the name of his school. Noe, can you help me there? Atos, yes. And then you got the two Bertolo brothers that train out of Atos as well.
Yeah.
There's a video.
Those guys are making waves. Those guys are making out serious money.
Yeah.
The one and stuff. So, which is a Japanese organization, but they're making like hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they're winning. They're fucking people up. Like,
which team was the Daisy Fresh documentary?
So those guys are under their Pedigo.
There we go.
Yeah, those guys are real cool too. I haven't watched the latest episodes. Those guys motivated you to go want to train, even if you were tired, even if you didn't. Those guys, they trained hard. The first documentary that came out on them, the first series, it was so good that I literally wanted to go train that day. And
I remember watching it and I was inspired. Just, not even just in martial arts, but in general. Those guys were crazy. They lived, ate, slept together in that gym and just, I don't know, just fucking tried to win it all at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to meet some of them in Houston during the pandemic, and they were nice guys. And that's the thing about jiu-jitsu is that when you're on the mats, you're fighting, you're trying to choke somebody out, you're trying to break their arm or their leg or everything. But 99% of the people that I meet through jiu-jitsu are the most nicest people, and you can have a conversation with them. If you see them in the street, and Noe, correct me if I'm wrong, and you see anybody you've trained with, anybody you shared a mat with, anybody and it's going to get a little nasty here, anybody that you share sweat with, you see them in the street, they're going to say hi. Nobody's going to walk by you like they never seen you before. Because
jiu-jitsu guys are gonna fucking hug you no matter what.
It's almost like you shared an intimate moment with sharing each other's sweat, hugging each other, and everything else. That when you see them in the street, you're gonna say hi. So I've had the pleasure of meeting the Daisy Fresh guys. I've met Nicky Rod, and I've also met Gordon Ryan. And Gordon Ryan, I remember when I met Gordon Ryan, I was nervous. This guy who's probably 20 years younger than me. And but he's the king. So I got to go meet him, and I asked him to sign a poster I had of him, and he signed it. And I walked away, and I was so nervous. And one of my professors was with me at the time, and he says, "You forgot to ask him for a picture." And I go, "Shit." He goes, "Let's go back." And I go, "He's not gonna want a picture." He's probably like, he don't want to be bothered. He was at it wasn't a super fight. It was just he was doing a charity thing. Mm-hmm. And I went back to him, and I was like, "Excuse me, Gordon. I don't mean to bother you again, but can I get a picture?" And he was like, "Oh, hell yeah, come on." He was real nice about it, and he was sitting there, and he took the picture, and then he was, talked for a quick second, and I went off, and I was like, "Whew, I got the picture. Okay, I'm good." That's the guy I would like to meet right there, and I haven't had the pleasure, is John Danaher.
I've met John. I've trained with John. Yeah, it's the cool thing about like these people, especially like for us jiu-jitsu nerds, right? like for us, they're like superstars, right? Like so we see them on the videos we watch every day and shit like that. But they're actually super accessible, like compared to any other like hobby or like thing that you do. Like all these people are super accessible because that's kind of their business, right? They're supposed to be accessible. That's how they sell instructionals, do seminars and stuff. But I've had the pleasure to go to Austin and train under John a few times, a good little dozen times, and yeah, it's fucking incredible, man. He's an incredible coach. It's a little nerve-wracking training there, just because like this is a guy like I watch videos of every day, like not in a weird way, right? Like I just hear daily, like I literally do. Like I'm always watching some sort of downhill instructional or something, and then just for him to be in the same room, it's fucking intimidating as fuck. Like it's like the most like don't do dumb shit, don't do dumb shit, don't do dumb shit. You know, like when you're rolling. Like the first time I ever went there, my friend Eric, he was the one who kind of invited me, and I was able to get in because of him. And at the end of class, he's like, "Yeah, man, let's roll." So we start rolling like 3 feet from John, and he's just watching us roll. It's like the most like I would have rather competed somewhere, like you know what I mean, than fucking be there, but. It was fun, you know. It's a crazy environment. Just blessed to be in Texas, the new mecca of jiu-jitsu. You know, like
it's just intimidating with them being there, right? I mean, and I always tell a funny story when I competed in Austin one time, and Victor Jr. was there with me. You know, I had Coach Jesse was coaching me at the time, and I was trying to fight, do my thing, and then I had this guy yelling at me from the corner. And I love telling the story because I didn't know who he was at the time. And had this guy yelling at me from the corner, and I went to Jesse. And he, you know, he had a Gracie Baja shirt on, so I said, okay, he must be part of our family somewhere, you know. Mm-hmm. So I walked up to Jesse. And I go, who the hell is this guy yelling at me? And he goes, that's Professor Draculino. I go, oh shit! And you know, those don't know who Professor Draculino is. He's I mean, he's been in jiu-jitsu for as many years as I mean, from the 80s, you know. I mean,
yeah, no, he's big, man. He's the spearhead of Gracie Baja here. Like he runs headquarters. I got to meet him too one time. A bunch of my old coaches went to dinner and he was there. I got to pee next to him. It was great. He gave me a Brazilian coin actually that I still have somewhere to this day.
Wow. Remember who the fuck? Yeah, right. And so he after that. After I found out who he was, and I go, okay. And so Jesse would shoot out his coaching in between, but he was standing right next to Draculino. So obviously Draculino takes over the coaching,
of course.
And I won that match, and I get to say I was coached by Professor Draculino. Obviously, the next match I went against my the guy I always go against, and he kicked my ass and I lost. So I took second place in that tournament.
That's the way it goes with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
someone's gonna lose.
Yeah, I mean, I love having my medals. Not so much because of what I won. My medals are more showing me because, and we'll get to it right after this break, but of the journey that we've taken through jiu-jitsu. Once again, it's guys. I know this is a little bit different than our usual line of generations, but if you listen to this whole podcast, you're going to see how each one of these different martial arts have taken a different turn and how it has changed people's lives and how it affected different age ranges and how you're going to see that it is a great art form. We'll be back right after this break from our other sponsor, Virtus Apparel.
Hi, everyone. We are Virtus Apparel. At Virtus, we believe that fashion is more than just clothing. It's a form of self-expression. That's why we offer a wide range of stylish and comfortable outfits designed to fit seamlessly into your lifestyle. From casual wear to athletic attire, Virtus has you covered. Our collections are crafted with quality materials and attention to detail, ensuring that you look and feel your best in every situation. So whether you're heading to the gym, meeting friends for brunch, or simply relaxing at home, choose Virtus to elevate your look and embrace your individuality. Visit our website at www.virtusapparel.shop. And now, back to you, Victor. Thank you for choosing Virtus.
Virtus Sports Apparel. We went off on our last subject before our last break. Sorry, we were talking about jiu-jitsu and the grade of it and how it's changed over the world over the years. From back when Horace Gracie came out in UFC 1 and the popularity grown. the Gracie family, how it came from, and the origins from Japan, and how we see it now, and what's going on, and how the different changes have been. The reason why we talk about jiu-jitsu so much is because the three of us all participated or still participate in training. You know, we started at different points of our life. You know, Victor as a child, Noe as probably overgrown teenager, and myself as an older gentleman, all started in jiu-jitsu different times. Mm-hmm. And you know, it has changed us in different ways, for the good, for the bad, or we're able to look at some of these matches and say, okay, you know, he should be doing this or he should be doing that. But at the end of the day, the three of us know that we can protect ourselves against anybody coming at us or any type of self-defense situation. But the great part of it is that we get to go train and we get to go practice these techniques. And in any given moment, we can have a good row, which is what it's called when you do a sparring session, a row. But Victor, you started off as a kid when you were, I believe, 13 years old.
I think I was 14.
14?
Yeah, it was when I was in 8th grade, towards like the end of 8th grade. I got in some trouble at school because some dude was picking on me, so I punched him in the face. Turns out a lot of people are bark no bite in 8th grade. So as soon as I punched him, he fell on the floor and cried, and then they called the security guard on me, and I was put in ISS for like a week. The school didn't really like the kid, so they didn't punish me that bad. But his parents were pretty upset, and the response for the school, or for me to not get in trouble, was like some sort of like anger management sort of thing going on. And my dad, you know, Vic, Big Papa Vic, he had known Jeff Manugli, I think, right?
And known his sister.
You had known Jan Benugli, and Jan Benugli had mentioned to you about the dojo that we ended up training at. And I remember that first day. It was like 2 days after I had punched this kid, and I was still pretty like angry about it. And I sat down with Jeff Benugli, and he goes, so you like punching kids, huh? You like punching people who are smaller than you? And I'm like, well, that wasn't the situation. Like, sure, he was smaller than me, but he was saying some things that deserved to be, like, he deserved to get punched for. And he goes, do you really think so? I'm like, I mean, I guess not, man. Like, that's why everyone's upset with me right now. And he goes, well, if you really want to punch people, I'll show you how to punch people. And I'm like, I don't see how this is going to stop me from punching people, but like, this is better than anger management courses, man. So I remember going every day after school for like 3 years, training with Jeff. We started off doing karate because Jeff Panugli was a kickboxer, and I think his main fighting like technique, his form, whatever, was karate or kickboxing, Muay Thai. It was a mixture, and as the gym went on and we got more students, I was like the only 14-year-old that Jeff was training at the time. We had smaller kids that trained with us, but I couldn't train with them because I was a 14-year-old awkward mess. And so that's when they put me in the adult classes, and that's when I met Noe and all of our other friends like Abel, Elsa, Pablo, and all of them. We all trained together every day for a good 3 years straight. And then around like the first year mark, we pivoted, really. We stopped doing karate, and we pivoted straight to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and, you know, just to go on a little bit on Jeff Manugli, I think we need to show him a couple more seconds of some respect, because this is a man that pretty much donated his time and location, and he had a love for martial arts. And Noah, you knew him longer than us, but it's a man that just, I mean, he commanded attention as soon as he walked in the room. You know, I mean, and he was there. He goes right there. As soon as he walked in, you knew he was there, and he took on a role that helped me out a lot. You know, he took on this role of being a sensei to Victor, and that Victor just loved being around Jeff. Like he was excited to go train with Jeff.
Yeah.
And to this day, I mean, when I seen Jeff about a couple years ago, And I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And he says, "Of course I remember you. How's Victor?" I mean, he asked for Victor right away. I mean, this is a great man. I mean, I know you have a lot of respect for him as well. I just think that he did something great in this community. I know he lives in the San Antonio area now, and I hope he's still doing well, and hope he's still training as hard as he ever has. Go ahead, Victor. I'm sorry. I just want to give a little respect to Jeff there.
No, it's fun. Yeah. So as my journey into martial arts was like, I don't know, towards like the middle, Jeff decided to take the gym into a new direction, and we stopped doing karate, and we focused more towards on jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts because of the people that were getting involved with the gym. And then I had a new sensei, and he was kind of trash. I'm not even going to give him a name because I don't think he deserves it. But like, I trained for another 2 years, and in my last year of training jiu-jitsu, I was an assistant like teacher, professor, I guess, and I taught the kids class that I was not allowed to be in the first place, and it felt pretty good. I was able to help a lot of kids with their self-confidence, mostly into tournaments. I think that was more my like job, because I understood what it was like to be a kid and losing tournaments for a long time. I didn't win. I think I only ever won 1 gold. I never won more than like bronze and silver my entire like career as a fighter. But it was still fun. I learned a lot of discipline, and I was able to teach it, which I think teaching is what makes you learn things the most.
Absolutely.
Being able to look at an 8-year-old and tell him that the reason why he's not winning is because he lacks the discipline. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
It opens up things and puts it in perspective. Like, is discipline really something that you get over time, or is it something that you have to try to tell yourself, like, hey, you need to work on this right now? Like, there's no try, it's due.
Yeah. And do you remember that gold you won, Victor?
No, it was probably a Mat Shark tournament at the Marine Military Academy.
No,
something like that.
I remember very clearly, and I'm going to tell you why. And it kind of goes back to my last thing I mentioned about Jeff Benugli, is that we were in actually Corpus Christi.
Okay.
And you had lost, I believe, the gi match.
Oh, was it a no gi gold?
And it was and they needed some more participants. And you know how it is at tournaments. Sometimes they don't have enough participants. They start asking. Well, they asked Jeff if they had anybody that would compete in your age range for no gi.
Uh-huh.
So he came up to you and asked you to do it, and you said no. And Jeff says, "You're not allowed to say no. You're going to compete because I know you can do this, and you will compete." And because he's like, "I got faith in you that you're going." I mean, he gave you this whole speech, and you just stared at him and you said, "Okay."
Yeah.
So then he went, and actually Jeff coached you on that one, because all the other ones was the other gentleman that would coach you. Jeff coached you on that specific fight, and you won, and that's the one you won gold in.
I think I did better in the tournaments where I was coached by like Abel and Noe and Jeff. Those are the ones I remember winning the most. Did I not place in the regular gi tournament at all?
No, you didn't place in that one. You got eliminated in the first round.
Makes sense. I remember. That's when I had red hair. I had red hair, right?
Yeah, you had red hair.
Yeah, I remember that fight.
But we all have different origin stories, and that's why I wanted Victor to tell a little bit of his. You can go ahead and finish it, Vic. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna finish with I don't currently train jiu-jitsu like how Noe and my dad do. I stopped when I was 17, so I did it for a good like 3 years. And it was like my life for those 3 years. Honestly, I put a lot of time into it. I sacrificed a lot. I think what really ended it at the end was the guy who ended up training me after Jeff Benugli. I guess he was going through some personal problems or whatever, and he took it out on 16-year-old, 17-year-old me. And I had gotten injured for one tournament, and I was gone for a while. And while I was gone, he was telling all the parents of the kids I was training that I was an irresponsible teenager, that I was drinking and partying and doing all kinds of things, and they shouldn't trust me with their kids. And then when I came back and we were doing some rolling, he cranked my arm like a bunch of times while we were rolling, and I just had enough. Like it felt like he was doing it to prove a point. Like, I'm your sensei. Like, I can do this to you. Like, I don't know. It was a weird, like, little power struggle, like, situation going on, and I wasn't about it, man. I don't deal with people who bully others, which is ironically what we trained at that school. Like, it didn't feel right. So I stopped going at all, and I kind of fell out of love with the sport because I realized that a lot of the people that I was around and who ended up staying with that professor, they just ended up ruining the sport for me, because it's like, how can you be so disingenuous about what you want to do? Like, we all came here because we want to stop bullying. That was the moniker of the gym, and here we are bullying people and shit, thinking we're better than everyone when we go to tournaments. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, man. That was really fucked up. Like, I remember that day Vic told me that something had happened and stuff. He wanted me to talk to you, right? And I was like, well, what happened, right? And then when I found out what happened, it was like that's like the worst thing. Like, as a coach, as a kid's coach, as an adult coach, right? Now, mind you, there's banter, right, especially against adults, but to hurt someone like that or to do something is just I don't know. It's really fucked up. Like, there's no reason. But mind you, this individual has that reputation. That's why he can't settle down anywhere, right? He was here, he was there, now he's at some other place. So
and what's crazy is that when I was bartending like about a year ago, there was this dude that would always come into the bar, right? And he would always get drunk, and he was friends with the owners. And when we would go have cigarettes outside, like afterwards when we were closed, he would always pick on the other bartenders that were smaller than him. Like, our bartenders at the bar that we worked at were pretty small guys. And he would always pick on them and like be like, oh, I practice jiu-jitsu. I can fuck you up, man. Like, he's drunk. He's like, I can fuck you up. And that's all he says. Like, he would go up to people and then like he would get into stance and start like picking at their pants, as if they were gis and at their jackets and shit. And I remember being like, I remember around the second time that this happened, I actually like stood up and I was like, hey dude, like, don't touch him. Like, don't touch my bartenders. At the time I was serving, I was real protective of these guys because they're small guys, like I'm telling you. And this guy's big and buff, and he apparently knows jiu-jitsu. I'm like, I know enough that I think I can take his drunk ass, but I'm not going to let him know that. So I tell him, I'm like, hey, like, back off. Like, they don't know anything. Like, just stay away. Like, fuck off. And he goes, oh, you want to fight me now? I'm like, nah, I don't, bro. Like, I don't need to. And I just walked away, and me and my homies walked away. Well, I find out like months later that this guy was learning jiu-jitsu from the guy who abused the fuck out of me.
No, that's crazy.
And the dude who cranked my shit fucking walks into the bar with his student, who I know as an obnoxious asshole. Like, every week I know this guy, he's just an asshole. He's always going to want to try to fight me. And I know, and now I see why he's like that, because the guy who did what he did to me is just out here still training people and like ruining a generation of like martial artists and teaching them the worst ways to do it.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. That's a crazy.
But it was like it was a weird full circle moment. And I saw him across the bar, and he came up to me and he, ordered a drink and pretended like he didn't hurt my fucking self-confidence as a 16-year-old to continue in a sport. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's like the last time I ever interacted with it, and I've left it at that. But it I don't know, it soured my my perspective.
And before we get into your story here, is that fortunately, like I said, jiu-jitsu has brought a lot of people together in different areas and different types of people. We met Noe in that same school, and Noe has been a very important part of not just our jiu-jitsu community, but a part of in Mendez life. We've known Noe over the years, and I remember going to Noe and asking him for that, because Noe didn't take on a role as just a teammate for Victor. Mm-hmm. Noe took on a role as kind of like that older brother he could speak to, and for some reason or another, in a good way, not a bad way, they have a very odd relationship that when they communicate between Noe and Victor, when they communicate, they understand each other to a level that I'm completely lost at.
Our autism aligns.
Yeah. and the thing is, like, when they do speak, and they can speak about anything, as you can see in this podcast and the different subjects that we hit on, they have such banter back and forth about how the different, every item from movies to comic books to jiu-jitsu to anything, that it's a joy that I was able to get Victor into that gym, and he able to get somebody like Noe in his life. So I remember going to Noe and telling him about that and how upset Noe was, and how he was so upset that that happened to him. But unfortunately, Victor never came back to the sport. But Noe still continues that relationship with him. So, and I go back to the first comment I made about how we meet people and how they become part of our lives. And we met them through jiu-jitsu, and you see them in the street. Victor and Noe may not talk every day as they used to, but when they do speak, they have a relationship that's like none other. And that's the great thing about what we was able to create with jiu-jitsu. Noe, you tell us a little bit how you started?
Yeah. I just want to just finish off with just if anybody's hearing this right, if you guys have had an experience kind of with a shitty coach, kind of like Vic did, leave. Like I left like the moment I found out what happened. I didn't go back to that school, just because it was so anti what we were being taught, right? So this is kind of like it's gonna turn into like a reach out to people being abused by their coaches. But yeah, if you're in a toxic fucking gym, dude, you like fucking get the fuck out of there. Like it's a lot less now, but those people are still out there. Jiu-jitsu, even though it's a great platform for growth, it's like a knife, right? You can either use it to feed yourself and craft and use it as a tool, or you can use it to hurt people, right? And sometimes you get that bad apple, and stay the fuck away and expose them online and shit. Like I have no problem exposing fucking ugly people like that. So I've kind of wedged myself into the community to where I'm a little relevant and people pay attention to what I say. So I'm very good at exposing pieces of shit like that. Anyways, yeah. So I actually started doing Muay Thai first. Weird story. I fucking broke down in front of this church in my hometown. There was this big red building, like a barn, and I went in there to ask for help, and I saw people beating the fuck out of each other. And they had like this outreach program for teenagers using martial arts. And I did the class. The guy was like, "We'll help you with the car. We just got to watch class, right? You got to like wait for us." So I did, and I thought it was super cool what they were doing. And I was there the next day. The car turned on as soon as the class finished. It was really weird. And I started training Muay Thai first, and I did that for a little bit. I got kind of good at it. I lost a bunch of weight. We got obsessed, and Muay Thai was it. I thought it was the fucking best martial art in the world. Like nothing could beat it. Until this 4 foot, 145-pound kid. We were playing around one time. They were like, "Hey man, mess around with this guy. See what just kind of spar and stuff."
Just to clarify, mess around meant jiu-jitsu or
like you're playing. Like he was.
It's we gotta explain that part.
Yeah, he was a jiu-jitsu guy and I was a kickboxer, right? So I was like, "Man, I'm gonna piece this dude up," and we weren't trying to hurt each other. We were just kind of messing around. And I threw a kick. He caught my kick, put me on my ass, and then he didn't submit me. I remember he didn't submit me, but he was able to control me. Right. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't do anything. I remember the round finished. I went outside, threw up because he fucking put it on me. And I remember driving home and just being so uncomfortable with that. Like, I was like, man, like, I can't believe like this kid like just controlled me. And I was there the next day for a jiu-jitsu class, that's I think that's the two type of people you get when you try jiu-jitsu, right? You're either like, oh, that was horrible. It's not for me. I'm going to go buy a gun. Or this is unacceptable and I have to learn how to defend myself, right?
Well, definitely. I think it's a sport that you either love it or hate it, but when you love it, it's just every little thing amazes you. How was he able to do that,
Yeah, it's just and and really now as a coach, and like I've been doing it for fucking 14 years already, right? It's just I talk a lot of shit about other martial arts, but jiu-jitsu works because it attacks the main source of every other martial art, which is being able to create kinetic energy off the ground, right? Like what we're watching right now, these punches and kicks are all coming off the ground. The only reason he's able to hit and kick so hard is because he's standing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same idea as like when you brand a steer, you don't brand it standing up, right? Like it's going to kick your head off. You know, you wrap its legs, you bind its legs, and you put it on its back, you know, and then you're safe. It's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. The reason it's so effective is that the first step with jiu-jitsu is to take you down, right? I take away your legs and I put you on your back. And that's why it's so effective. A lot of people think jiu-jitsu is just defensive, and it isn't. It's very offensive. I don't know what people think breaking someone's arm is, but that's like the most you can get, right? But
it's a preemptive offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just the reason it's such like a beautiful, it's because I can have the choice, right? I can break you, I can put you to sleep, or I can hold you till the cops come, you know, like, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like it's a true self-defense where I don't have to hurt you. It's like what happened to Victor, right? He was the one being bullied. This is what I tell my kids class. Like you can be the one being bullied. You have enough of it one day and you hit this kid back and now you're the one in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Compared to if I know jiu-jitsu, this kid's bullying me, I can put him on his ass, pin him, call my teacher, you know, or somebody for help and be like, hey, this guy did this, you know, I didn't hurt him. I put him down and I held him there. But, you know, I think that's why it's such a good martial art, right? The best martial art. Like I'm just going to throw it out there. Like,
do you mind if I cut in for a second?
Go ahead.
I think what I learned a lot from jiu-jitsu was being comfortable in uncomfortable positions, and it really does help you, especially when you know being a growing teenager too. There's moments where when you're training jiu-jitsu where you're just fucking folded 9 ways, and you're trying to figure out how the fuck do I get out of here. And that's what's great about training is that you know you can be put in these uncomfortable positions, and the lesson for the day could just be, hey, just try to get out of that and get yourself in a better position. I remember days just being folded 9 ways and just so uncomfortable with all this weight on me, and all I wanted to do was get out. But because I know I'm there until I figure it out, I calm down and I start breathing and I start thinking more. And maybe lack of oxygen to my brain is making me think more creatively. But what if I just fucking sweep this way, or fucking flip this way, or roll out backwards? It opens up. I think jiu-jitsu is a very creative sport. It's one of the most creative like martial arts out there, I think. Because like Noe said, you're not pushing off the ground most of the time. You're pivoting off of like different stances. You have someone like in this clip that we're watching here, that dude's leg is being, you know, fucking guarded down, and he's using that as a way to pivot around so he can get the up on him, even though the dude had his leg trapped. Like it's just a sport that you're constantly thinking and you're on your feet, metaphorically.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's for me, I know I see it as, for me, it's a lot of things, right? Like I've kind of made jiu-jitsu my whole life. Like, you know, I'm running a gym. Like my wife trains jiu-jitsu, my kids train jiu-jitsu. You know, it's something. It's not just a hobby for me. It was a platform for growth. I grew a lot as a person doing jiu-jitsu. But you're right. Like it helps with complex problem solving, pattern recognition. Like there's so much in jiu-jitsu that is so overlooked a lot of the time. And it builds this dexterity, not just on the mats, but outside of the mats, right? Like if you can handle someone like your dad crushing you for an hour, then the rest of your day isn't going to be as bad. Like what can happen the rest of the day that's going to compare to Victor, who's a brown belt now, right? Smashing the fuck out of you, right? Like it's a beautiful thing. Like for me, I'm such a weird like artsy type dude. Like I've always had a weird. I was never taught to express myself, right? I did it through art, through painting for a long time and stuff. And jiu-jitsu has been a big platform for me to understand how to express myself. At first, like the jiu-jitsu itself was with people who I was comfortable with, right? Because it's a very intimate sport, not just because of the proximity it takes to jiu-jitsu, but because of the trust, right? Like, again, when me and your dad were training partners for a long time, you know, and he always trusted that I would never hurt him, and I always trusted that he was never going to hurt me. There's this unspoken of trust. So you build this relationship and this intimacy with people, and it almost became like a language for me. Like the days I had real hard time mentally, or I was going through some stuff, I needed to train, not because of the training itself or anything like that. It was because I needed to express. I needed to have a conversation, but not necessarily say anything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It just, I get real philosophical with it. With jiu-jitsu, and I think about this.
I think it's also, man. And before we run out of time, I'm going to get into a little bit of my story here. But one thing I want to express about the two of you is that I'm very thankful to jiu-jitsu. For instance, I'm Victor, even though his years were cut short. I know one day he's going to feel the itch again. Yeah, and when he feels that itch, he's going to get back into it, and he's going to be able to just pick off right where he left off. Knowing how Victor is, he's going to be able to pick off right where he left off. But the part that he did train in, with Jeff Benugli and with us and with some other people, he has that. I think Victor would be a great coach one day for jiu-jitsu. He's went to school a couple times with Thiago. And Thiago just started, and he sits there and he's watching them, he's telling them, and he shows them. I mean, the thing is that I think Victor has it in him. I think he's going to come back to it. But jiu-jitsu gave jiu-jitsu and training in the school, not under the other guy, but under Jeff and everything, gave him a sense of I think confidence within himself, and he knew that he didn't have to punch that bully afterwards. He knew that he could have taken other options and made the kid suffer just as much without having to lay his fist on him. And that's one thing that I'm very thankful, because Vic has taken that to a different level, as well as creating relationships with you, Noe, and other people. And in Noe's situation, I'm thankful for it, because I remember, once again, Noe used to work for me in the office. And some of the times I would get frustrated at Noe, because, being Noe's boss, I sometimes I wanted to yell at him. Sometimes I loved him. Sometimes I wanted to just, take him out to the train station, like they say in Yellowstone. But it's that I would get frustrated with him, because I would say, man, if Noe put in a little bit more effort, and I don't know if I ever told you this, Noe. I was like, I don't know if Noe put in a little bit more effort into his career like he does jiu-jitsu, man, he could be a badass at this. He could be a badass at what he does, because without trying, he completed his job every day without trying 100%. And I mean, you can tell me you tried 100%, but as your boss, I see him like, okay, he's putting so much in, but he's not putting the last percentage in, But I was like, if he did a little bit more like he does jiu-jitsu, he could kill it in this industry. Now I see him years later and, opening Ground Zero Jiu-Jitsu, and him putting the commitment to this lifestyle, putting the commitment to teaching younger generations, putting the commitment to showing what jiu-jitsu can do for you, not only as a kid, but as an adult, and making a living at it. It's like such a proud moment. As me, as a father for Victor, as a friend to Noe, saying, hey, he did it. He didn't need to do it in my career. I wanted it in my career because I thought he was so good, but he went and showed me that, hey, he can do it in what he really wanted to do. And there's nothing more prouder than me to say, hey, you know what? Keep doing it. Support. We got you. We love you. Keep doing it, but you better not give up. And that jiu-jitsu has brought that to us, and it's great. Sorry, there's my banter.
No, you're good. That was good. I'm gonna cry. Yeah, man. It's been a lot of hard work, but I love jiu-jitsu so much. Just so grateful for the friends, and a lot of us have the same friend group, Elsa, Jesse, all these fucking assholes that beat the fuck out of us,
Yeah. Especially Jesse.
Yeah, but they're such good people, and I love jiu-jitsu so much. I love teaching jiu-jitsu, and like what you said about Little Vic, he has, I mean, you said it right. People like the way he articulates and stuff. That's a good coach. It's not about beating the fuck out of your students. This whole iron sharpens iron shit is for the birds, bro. That's bullshit. Yeah. You sharpen a sword actually with stone and water, right? You don't use metal to sharpen metal. So there's been a big change in the community as far as teaching methods, and I'm proud to be with my coach Jesse and myself. we're kind of spearheading this new way of teaching, and a lot of people fucking don't like it because we're a lot better than them, you know. And not to sound like an arrogant fuck, you know, but we put a lot of time into this stuff, and you know, we I think
it's your life.
Yeah, man, it's super exciting, and I'm super grateful, you know, to, you know, my mom was the same, like, when are you gonna get an actual job? And I brought her to the gym the other day, and I showed her the new facility, and she was just like speechless, you know.
Yeah.
So
it is a proud. It's a very proud moment, especially for us to see you. You know, like I said, me as your former boss, who you cost $60,000 to, it's very proud, you know, to look at you and say, you know, one day maybe he'll pay me back. You know, I mean,
maybe not.
Yeah.
The world may never know.
Instructionals for life.
You know, before sorry, I lost my train of thought. Before, just to touch on my story real quick, I'll make it short because I know that we're running out of time here. Like Victor said originally, he got called into pretty much the principal's office, and then the principal's office, Jeff Bernoulli's office. And I remember that first meeting because Jeff Bernoulli came out because he wanted to speak to Victor alone. He came out of that meeting and says, "I want Victor here every day, Monday through Friday." I
swept those fucking floors.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
He goes, "I'm gonna put him to work, and he's gonna train, and he's gonna be. I'm gonna keep him busy." I was like, "Great, I look forward to it. How much?" He said, "No, I don't charge." I said, "Okay, great." At the time, they weren't charging at the school, and it was like, "Okay, great." He goes, "But I will tell you this: you need to be with them." And I go, "Well, I kind of work, sir. You know." He goes, "Where do you work at?" I go, "San Benito." He goes, "Well, you can come straight from there over here. I'll have Victor here, and you can come before you pick him up. You can come train with us." Like I said, he was one of those gentlemen that he presented confidence, but he's also like he demanded the room. So it was kind of like,
okay. He's a scary guy.
Yeah, he's like, okay, he's what?
He was a scary guy.
Yeah, so it's kind of like my answer was like, okay. So and I had already started on to start losing weight because I had gotten up to an amount of weight that was embarrassing. I was over 340 pounds for myself and unhealthy. So I had already started like training in the morning. So I was like, you know what, this is giving me a good opportunity to spend some time with my son and go from there. And like Victor said, we started off in karate. Most of the adult classes for me it was mostly cardio and just learning how to move in different areas that, you know, a guy at 340 pounds is not used to moving.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we switched over to jiu-jitsu. I started training with him, and then I started training with the gentleman that Victor talked about earlier. And I started falling in love with it. Jiu-jitsu was a sport that just caught my eye. Mind you, before this, I'd never done a sport before. In high school and no type of anything. I like to play basketball once in a while, but it was just like a friendly game. And afterwards, I was dying. And 340 pounds, it wasn't easy to do anything. I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. I started liking how the way we were able to maneuver, how to get out of certain situations. And then I got my blue belt. I got my blue belt. And those of you that don't know jiu-jitsu, the adult belts are different than karate. In jiu-jitsu, is you average at least about a 9 to 10 year span before you can even be considered for like a black belt. Some people have done it shorter, but it's every belt's 2 to 3 years pretty much. And it's not like written in stone, but it's just kind of how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I got my blue belt. The situation happened with Victor. Noe left the school. Victor left the school. I went and competed my first time and my last time under that coach. I quit the school and I quit jiu-jitsu. Blue belt is known as the belt that you quit on, and I was one of the statistics. I don't know. Noe, did you fall in that one? The blue belt quit?
Kind of.
Yeah, I did it for about a year and a half. I quit.
Yeah, well, when I left there, I was still a blue belt. So we kind of all put together, and then I gained a bunch of weight too, and then I didn't start training.
Then you came away from me.
I think the only one that got ranked up while we were at Green Ghost was Mickey.
Yeah. He's and congrats to him, he's a black belt now.
Yeah.
There, as I left there about a year and a half later, I started looking for a school again. I wanted to train. I know I didn't want to go back to that gentleman. I wanted to find a school. I found 2 locations here in Brownsville. I went to go train at one of them. Didn't really catch my eye. I was kind of like, didn't like it too much. I was just looking at that video, and that guy's arm was cranked so far back. And then I found the school I'm at now. I went in there. I trained on my first day. I told them I wanted my white belt. They said, no, you're ranked as a blue belt. You should stay as a blue belt. I tried it out for a couple of days, and I gained weak. My family gained a huge friend out of this situation because I remember being in the locker room afterwards, dying, of course, because I haven't trained jiu-jitsu for a year and a half, right? And anybody that's trained jiu-jitsu tell you that, the first day is always the hardest.
Uh-huh.
And I remember being in the locker room, and the professor walked in. Well, at the time, he was a brown belt. Walked in. He was a coach, though. And he walked in and said, hey, what'd you think? How'd you like my class? And I was like, wow, this guy, they actually care here, And the other ones are just like, here's the fees, and you just be here, blah, 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 blah. This guy actually asked me how it went. And I was like, I kind of like this place. That person ended up being Professor Juan, who's a part of our family now. I adopted him at 30 years old. He's was a private first class Juan now in the Army.
Yes.
And he's another one that I can say has been part of Victor's life, and I think it's because of jiu-jitsu, because Victor as an adult came home, and Juan was staying here at the house, and they gained a great relationship. And I started training at Gracie Baja Brownsville under Professor Tyler Bossard, who also has a huge resume of fights and battles that he's been through. He's a bigger size jiu-jitsu guy, and I mean by tall. He actually helps me learn a couple different things that sometimes I'm not able to get from the smaller guys. And then, but at the time, we had a coach there as well. His name was Jesse, who Noe just talked about. And Jesse was I think a purple belt at the time, became a brown belt. Jesse trains in the line of jiu-jitsu that makes you suffer. He makes your opponent suffer, and he makes it where Victor spoke about. You learn how to be comfortable, uncomfortable. He teaches us to make the other one uncomfortable. And I had the pleasure of working with Jesse for years, and I still consider him a coach, even though I don't train at his school no more. Jesse left Gracie. Jesse's now the head coach and soon to be hopefully professor at Arete Jiu-Jitsu. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
And he taught us how to make this person suffer, and how to, he taught me how to use my weight and not so much muscle, and how to and get the technique in place. Unfortunately, Jesse left us, and now I'm training under and Juan left, of course, as well. So I'm under Tyler now as well, still under Tyler. And like Noe mentioned earlier, I'm a brown belt now. I'm one step away.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and the ultimate goal was just to become a brown belt. I had plans on retiring. I didn't think I was going to become a brown belt this soon. I mean, I'm going 10 years into the game now, and I didn't think it was going to become a brown belt. Mind you, like I said, I had no experience in any type of sports. I had 2 ruptured discs in my back. But the thing is, I kept going. And since I trained jiu-jitsu, I have less back issues. I'm talking about 0 to 1% type of back issues going on now. I do lift weights again now. I am way under 340 pounds now. And I live a different lifestyle because it's you need it for jiu-jitsu. I don't want to eat a bunch of greasy food and then go train, because that sucks. I mean, no way you tell them. I mean, you eat a bunch of terrible food and go train. Yeah. It doesn't feel good.
No, and on top of the getting wrecked by everyone, you're gonna feel like shit.
Yeah, and then it feels like the grease is coming to your pores.
Yeah.
But no, jiu-jitsu has changed my life overall. It has made me a better person. The people I've met there have been great. Not everybody has become like, my best friend. Just because I'm more of a private person. I open up to a certain point and then I close back up. But the ones that are able to withstand that when I close back up, I really consider them close to me. I go train. Right now, I'm training 3 to 4 times a week, and it's a joy to me to continue training. And now we got Thiago into jiu-jitsu. He loves training. He loves fighting. He wants to go compete more. So the thing with jiu-jitsu is it is a life changer, and I'm proud to be part of that community. I'm proud to be a brown belt in that community. I'm proud to be part of Gracie Baja. I'm proud to be had able to train under Jesse for so long. I'm proud to call Noe a brother. You know, I'm proud that Victor trained, and jiu-jitsu has changed my family's life over the years, and it's something that I'm very grateful and can never talk bad of.
Oh yeah.
So that's a little bit about my story. No, and before we close out here, I want to hear from the both of you guys. What do you guys hope for in the next 10 years for this sport that we all can consider part of our life?
Vic,
yeah, I'll go first since I'm not actively training. I mean, like they both have said, like maybe one day I'll just hop back in, but for right now, I think what Noe is working towards right now, where a different way of training people, because I remember when I was growing up, we used to go to a lot of open mats and like go see what all the other dojos were about in the valley, and they were all kind of the same. They were all very iron sharpens iron, and as Noe mentioned, like that doesn't make it sharp, you just lose iron.
Yeah.
What I hope for, I guess, is that when I do eventually come back, that I start to see some changes, and those kinds of changes that I wish were like going on when I was a teenager in the sport, which I'm sure are. I'm sure it's a whole different like ball game. It was just a bunch of, I think, elder millennials that were very angry at the world when I was in jiu-jitsu. So now that more people have just aged up a bit, I think it'll be nice. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Noe?
Yeah, man, I'm kind of with Vic. Like, I would love for him to come. Actually, I would love for you, if you're ever back down, to come do a class with me.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, to kind of see kind of the new kind of approach we're doing. But yeah, I think jiu-jitsu is only going to grow, and my goal with my school is to just make people competent at grappling, right? I want to make people good at jiu-jitsu in a short amount of time, right? A lot of the long time training and stuff comes from a marketing scheme set by the Gracies, which is very well, makes a lot of money for them, right? They're all very well off. But there's faster ways to learn things. There's new mental models. There's learning systems that just increase retention and stuff like that. So at least my personal goal with my school, and just the way Jesse teaches, I hate to speak for him, but he does it. I mean, I learn everything from him mostly, right? I just make it better because I'm better. Don't tell me that. But yeah, I think there's a big shift happening, and all these like machismo filled guys in the valley, who yeah, fuck them, like they're just they're either gonna have to catch up or just become irrelevant, and not to say that there's not a place for that, in order to have relevance you have to have irrelevance. But I'm really excited to just I get more and more confident with my teaching skills and our philosophies every day. So I wouldn't have been able to say the things I said right now 2 years ago probably. But now I'm super confident, and I'm excited to get everybody doing jiu-jitsu. Like Victor said, right? He didn't have any sort of physical experience or any sort of sport or anything, and now he's a fucking brown belt, and a good brown belt at that. He's very humble, but he's fucking good. Like he's really good at jiu-jitsu, right? So anybody can do it. Jiu-jitsu is not a tough man sport; it's a thinking man sport. And I think once you kind of tap into that, you can be really, really fucking good. So that's kind of my personal goal. As far as like an overall jiu-jitsu thing, it's changing, man. Jiu-jitsu is now an American thing, right? You're seeing the term American jiu-jitsu be thrown out there, and it's incredible to watch. I love shit like that. I love kind of sticking it to the man, right? Which in our sense would be the Brazilians Federation, right? Like, guys, the
Portuguese.
Yeah, even with that, man, like with the gi on, gi off, if we're doing some sort of, we're incorporating wrestling, we're incorporating all sorts of stuff that was taboo back then for the Brazilians, and for a lot of them still is. and now most of the champions are American. So. Yeah. And we were giving the Brazilians a run for their money, not to take away from what they did and to the sport, and and then the growth and how they introduced it to us. But
it's just what we do.
It's what we do. We make shit better.
And I think what I want to see in the future is kind of to see this word came out quite a bit, confidence, self-confidence in this podcast, and it continues showing these kids the self-confidence they need. I would love to see the Gordon Ryans of the world, the next generation of Gordon Ryans, to come out and show what they can do. I would love to see Gordon Ryan fight again. I would love to see some of these tours to go into more areas than just Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see your school grow, of course. I want to see the other schools that have been part of my life, besides the first one. But we didn't shout them out or anything, but shout out to all the schools, Gracie Baja Brownsville, my school, Ground Zero Jiu-Jitsu, Noe School, Arete Jiu-Jitsu from Coach Jesse, which we both trained with, Prime Time Fighting, out of those Fresnos.
Isaac, and shout out to Nye.
Yeah.
You guys are changing the game, man.
And we can't forget about Professor Art over
absolutely
at Savage 20. These are all great places that have been part of my jiu-jitsu career, and ironically enough, part of Noe's. We've trained together for the last 10 years. As I want to see them all grow, I want to see the self-confidence in the kids grow. And I think that's going to help change the future of this beautiful sport that we are part of. And I know we mentioned, some other martial arts at the beginning, and I hope they continue to grow as well in karate, judo, kickboxing, MMA. I wish them all well in the future. But so before we log off with Big Papa's Word, I just want to give you two, a warning for next week's episode. This week, Victor had to sit there and listen to pretty much me and Noe talk about jiu-jitsu. I'm going to give you guys a warning for next week's show, for you guys can prepare. Next week's show will be comic books.
Oh, shit.
So you guys get your stuff ready. I'm sure that you both are excited for that, but it's just something I thought we're ready for that show. I'm not. I may not be as prepared, but I look forward to hearing you guys go back and forth. Noe, thanks a lot. Welcome back. Glad to have you back. Thanks again to Deanna and Oscar last week. Maybe one day we can all get on the show together, because I think it would be great to have you all here. Victor, as always, I know you're probably going to go back to sleep, but thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem.
And we appreciate the visual effects this week.
Yeah, no problem.
Way to end it with my man Gordon just fucking annihilating these dudes.
Yeah, this is the 2022 ADC World Championship.
Yeah, he kicked Nicky Rod's ass.
Everyone's ass.
Yeah, well, he thought, and Nicky Rod still thinks he can hang with Gordon. I'm sorry, I don't think so. That's just my personal.
Is that Bruce Buffer?
Yeah.
What the hell? Cool.
It's growing, I'm telling you. Well, before we end it, we'll go off on Big Papa's words. Martial arts has not only been a great art form brought to us in the United States from other countries, but also a great business. Many locations stick to a very strict moral code, but like any business, not every location is great for our children. Late the great Mr. Miyagi said, "No such thing as a bad student, only bad teacher." Doesn't matter if you choose karate or the great jiu-jitsu. Do your research and make sure that the instructor would not only show them the technique, but be a great leader and teacher for his students. With a good teacher, your child will learn self-defense, great technique, and how to respect one another, and last but not least, self-confidence. Us. This is Rhyme and Reasoning.
Us.